Mr. Stevenson was a leading criminal lawyer. He wore 2 gold earrings in his left ear and was well known for representing clients involved in unusual cases.
This story has all the salacious details that newspaper editors just love. A prominent gay criminal lawyer, Darren Stevenson, shot in the back of the head.
The partially clothed body was frozen solid in a crouched position when police prized open the freezer about 5 o'clock last night. Detectives have been questioning a young man who was found in possession of the car.
That young man was David Zack, Darren Stevenson's young lover. The jury finds him guilty of murder and he serves 14 years in prison.
We presumed he was innocent from the beginning until the first lie came out.
But there's one problem. For 40 years, David has insisted he didn't do it.
I did not kill Darren Stevenson. I played no part whatsoever in his murder.
Now he wants my help to clear his name, and it will lead me into a terrifying world of abductions, killings and cover-ups that go to the highest echelons of South Australia.
I think that body was put in that freezer to set him up.
As my investigation continues, will these victims' families ever get the justice they deserve?
I want to be able to say, these people, you did this to these boys. Because only one person's been convicted of him, only one, and there's a lot more involved.
A rare insight into one of Australia's most depraved killers.
I could hear Bevan and Dennis giggling and laughing, both saying, oh, how evil, it's evil.
What is the menacing new twist to Darren Stevenson's late-night activities?
Darren Stevenson was actually done over because he was blackmailing.
And the Hollywood-style sting to catch my own partner's killer. So what you have is undercover coppers setting up this psychopath who thinks he's more clever. Criminal profiler Chris Illingsworth is combing through every detail of David's life. She wants to see a copy of his full criminal record, which means filing an application with South Australia Police. I imagine David's not too comfortable being here. After all, last time he walked into a cop shop, he didn't come out again for 14 years. So you haven't got any skeletons in your closet you want to tell me about, have you?
Only a illegal use going back to 1973.
Illegal use?
Of a motor vehicle.
What happened?
I've got an idea. I broke into a house and the car keys were there and I took the car, but beyond that, the finer points I really wouldn't be overly familiar with now.
How old were you?
I think 13. I've got
Going to the house, and what did you do then?
The car keys were on the kitchen counter or somewhere. And I thought, geez, I haven't done this before. And took off from there. So. What
did you do?
Drove it and had an accident. Yeah, went in a ditch or something.
And what happened then?
Well, I was arrested and went to court over that and spent 6 months or 3 months or some period of time in a boys' home.
Sorry?
I spent 3 months or 6 months in a boys' home. And then after that, there wasn't anything further. There wasn't any criminal activity further happening from that.
David, back up if we can. Yeah. Sorry, you've never told me any of this before.
I was never asked, so, you know, you asked me if there was anything I wanted to talk about, and I'm conveying, well, you know, that's something from my past that I'm just sharing with you. Yeah.
You spent 3 to 6 months in a boys' home for one offence?
Yeah.
OK, is there anything else you want to tell me before we go in there?
No.
That's come as a bit of a shock, to be honest.
There's no crimes of violence that I've been engaged in. So it's always been property offences.
Offences, plural?
Yeah. Housebreak and illegal use, that's
OK.
Property offence.
Let's go in and...
OK.
This is the big reveal, David.
Oh, well, I don't know about that.
David's revelation has knocked me sideways. 6 months in a boys' home is a long sentence for just one offence. It makes me wonder what other surprises he may be hiding from his past. But I also have many more questions about Darren Stevenson's dirty dealings. What began as a single murder investigation has suddenly become something much more complex and sinister.
I'm told it was a family killing, that Darren was a member of the family.
Police now believe they were all committed by the same people, a small group of violent homosexuals who, despite police suspicions, remain tantalisingly out of reach of the law. They've been dubbed the family.
If David didn't kill his lover as he claims, I really need to find out who had it in for the lawyer. A clue lies in the identity of the mysterious and terrified young man who turned up at the Legal Services Commission the morning after Darren's murder, saying he needed to see a lawyer. He said he was Stevenson's client, but he then added when he'd seen him the night before, he was in no fit condition to act for anyone. It's widely believed this young man was Alan Barnes, the first victim of the family murders. How do you know Alan Barnes was known to Darren's?
Because he was known to Juno Gambardella.
Just asked him the question, Dave, did you kill Darren? And David said, if they find this other boy, it'll put a completely different light on the case or the story.
Barnes' body was discovered an hour's drive from Adelaide under this bridge at the South Para Reservoir.
I need to learn more about Alan Barnes and his captors. Well, I'm hoping to get Robin, who's Alan Barnes' sister. She was 18 at the time, he was 17, but she's never spoken to the media. Incredibly private woman by all accounts, but was really close to Alan. It was the mum who used to do the talking to the press. I don't know if I can get her. There's no phone number, so I've got to go and actually do one of those horrible cold calls. Hello?
Hello?
Hello, I'm Debi Marshall. I'm a journalist.
Yeah.
Are you Robin?
Yes.
Could I have a chat to you? It's about your brother, Alan.
Yeah, sure. Come on in.
Thank you. Tell me about Alan. What was he like?
He was a character. He was a real character. He could get away with stuff that us kids couldn't even dream of. And there was just something amazing about him.
He was a bit of a chick magnet, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The girls loved him. They adored him.
What was the effect like for your family to lose him?
People think that it's all these years ago, you know, 39 years ago, but for us, it was like it was yesterday. It'll always be like it was yesterday. The pain never goes away.
What actually happened?
He was hitchhiking home, and when he didn't get home that night, we all knew. We all knew something wasn't right.
Alan Barnes was reported missing on Monday, June the 18th, 1979. His body was found a week later under a bridge at the South Para Reservoir.
I remember my dad walking through the door, and I just took one look at him and I saw his eyes, and I knew.
What did his eyes tell you?
I just saw the horror. I could just see the horror and the pain in my dad's eyes. I could just see it.
What do you think happened to Alan that week?
I think they kept him. They kept him drugged. They obviously had a wonderful time with him in ways that would make us have nightmares over. I really think they put him through hell.
After having been sexually abused and murdered, he'd been washed and redressed, a bizarre touch which police would see repeated in later murders blamed on the family.
And tell me about his funeral.
We had people like you wouldn't believe. There was reporters there. We didn't like it, but you kind of understood why they were there.
Alan was known to his mates as Spook. His gravestone reads, "A victim of man's inhumanity to man." Something else happened that day, didn't it?
Later that day, I was confirmed I was pregnant with the first grandchild. And a hell of a day to be told it, but yeah, I was told I was pregnant.
There's sort of something lovely about that though, isn't there?
In some ways it was. It's like a new life had come back into the family. And that didn't exactly turn out too well neither.
What happened?
I had a stillborn. I just put it down to the stress of everything that had happened with Alan and everything that we were going through at the time. Our first ray bit of hope in the family was just, like Alan, gone in an instant.
After Alan's murder, something changed in you, didn't it?
But after what happened, the outside world scared me. And it hurt. Went into a cocoon and pretty much will become housebound.
Why are you talking now?
It's time.
What do you want to see happen?
I'm at that point now, nearly 40 years later. I want to be able to say, these people, you did this to these boys. Because only one person's been convicted of him, only one. And there's a lot more involved.
Talk to practically anyone in Adelaide and they'll be able to name at least a couple of members of the despised family. Prominent citizens, many of them from the professions, some of them highly placed, are on the list.
Do you know those names?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Where did you get them from?
We were given them quite a few years ago, but I will not say where from. I can't. I cannot disclose how or who gave them to me, but they were handed to us.
Can you write those names down for me?
Yep.
If you can't tell me what they are. We can't show the names that Robin is writing down because two of the identities are protected by the South Australian courts. You realise those names are suppressed?
But why? Unless these people are brought out into the open, this is never going to be solved. And that's not fair on us. What about us that are left behind picking up the pieces? And they shouldn't be suppressed. Why? Because they're high profile? Well, wiki-do, you know? So what? No one should be above the law. No one.
The murder of Darren Stevenson has now led me into one of Australia's most horrific killing sprees. Alan Barnes is only one of 5 victims of the family murders that we know of. So who were the other young men? The second body found was Neil Muir's. And what was done to Neil takes horror to a whole new level.
Out of all the family murders, that was the worst, because the victim was drugged, had been sexually abused, and then was cut up into pieces, then put in plastic bags and thrown in the Paul River.
Muir was followed by Mark Langley.
18-year-old Mark Langley was found murdered and dumped in scrub in the Adelaide Hills. Like the others, his body had been washed and redressed.
He'd been operated on in the lower part of his stomach, opened up, and some attempt had been made at moving organs around inside his body. And then he'd been stapled up and a surgical tape had been used and placed over it.
Then there's the youngest victim, 14-year-old Peter Stogneff. Tragically, Peter's mistake was wagging school that day. The classic tale of wrong place, wrong time. 4 young men missing, and then Richard Kelvin went missing, and that changed the landscape completely. He was the son of a really popular Channel 9 newsreader, and suddenly his abduction was beamed into every lounge room in this city, and every person in this city was holding their breath, waiting for him to come home. What was the mood at Channel 9, knowing that Rob Kelvin, the beloved newsreader, that it was his son who had become a family murder victim?
Absolute devastation. To be such a public face and to be facing such an awful tragedy. And it went on for weeks. I mean, they held him for 5 weeks or something incredible before they actually killed him.
After months of investigations, a 37-year-old accountant, Bevan Spencer von Einem, a homosexual well known to police, was arrested for Kelvin's murder. Police say they're sure von Einem did not act alone.
This is the banality of evil. It's just so hard to believe that behind, you know, the neat fences and the concrete statues and the soccer mums, it just was a cover for such depravity. This is one of the units where von Einem, a cardigan-wearing accountant, lived with Mummy. When Mum was away, he and his cohorts would bring the kids, they'd reverse the car in, they'd drag the kids out and be drugged to the eyeballs. They'd drag them out by their arms and legs and take them into the bedroom and visit the most dreadful depravities on them. And the neighbours didn't know a thing. It was a perfect cover. Von Einem and his mother Thora lived in a number of homes over the years, all just a few streets apart, the last being this place. This is the house where von Einem was arrested for the abduction and murder of Richard Kelvin. Richard Kelvin, the 15-year-old boy who he admitted to bringing to this house, put him in the bedroom to play him the harp, as 15-year-old boys like to do.
The Crown alleged that with the help of one or more persons, von Einem abducted Kelvin from North Adelaide on June the 5th last year and held him alive and heavily drugged for a period of 5 weeks and then murdered him.
He's never admitted to the murder. He still says all these years later that he didn't do it. It's chilling to think that von Einem could still be walking the streets if it weren't for some clever forensic work in the unlikeliest of places. Harry, you worked on the terrible case of young Richard Kelvin. What was your role in that?
My part in that was to examine some hairs which were found on the inside of the legs of jeans that had been worn by Richard Kelvin. The interesting thing about that case was that von Einem had his hair dyed at regular intervals. And we could pick that up in these hairs that were recovered from the jeans. You could see the separate dyeings. So partly what you found helped convict von Einem of Richard Kelvin's murder? Well, I certainly safely say that those hairs that were found on inside Kelvin's jeans would have come from von Einem. Von Einem was definitely involved in that case somehow.
38-year-old accountant Bevan Spencer von Einem was convicted by a Supreme Court jury on Monday night, fixing the non-parole period today. The judge, Mr Justice White, said the nature of von Einem's crime had added a new dimension to murder in South Australia.
Von Einem was later charged for the murders of Alan Barnes and Mark Langley, but those charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. To this day, 4 of the 5 family murders remain unsolved. But just as unbelievable is the sheer scale of this operation. because police say hundreds more boys were abducted from the streets. They were the lucky ones who survived.
The police were contacted by a young man who said, I was picked up, I was drugged in some way. I woke up and I was very, very uncomfortable about what happened to me. Now, as the investigation went further, the police revealed that up to 150 young men had been picked up in this manner and drugged.
That's just an incredible...
That was huge. Will any further information come out, and will any further people be charged and exposed as members in the family murders? It was always believed that Bevan Spencer von Einem would eventually spill his guts, that he'd do it after his mother died. She died. Nothing. That's the way he's continually made statements he wants to get out. They'll never let him out. He will not get out.
Despite the overwhelming forensic evidence against him, von Einem has protested his innocence for 40 years. It makes what I'm about to read and hear critically important because it places von Einem and his friends right at the heart of the family murders. I've come to Whyalla, an industrial town 4 hours north of Adelaide, to meet retired schoolteacher Murray Peters. He's never spoken publicly about the contents of secret diaries written by his brother and discovered after his death. You had a brother, Trevor, who died in 2013. Tell me about him.
Well, my brother was gay, I guess made his way a bit as an artist, doing paintings and sketching and that for various rich people.
What's this? Where's this taken? It's a fabulous photo. Very, quite rude.
Yes, that was at my 21st birthday party. And
right.
That is Dennis St. Dennis, and that's Trevor. Dennis St. Dennis was a giant of a man, but obviously gay and very soft, really.
Hairdresser Dennis St. Dennis is an important character in this story. Two of his clients and friends were von Einem and Murray's brother, Trevor. After he died, you came into possession of a lot of his material, which were his journals and photos and artwork.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the diaries that he left behind.
Well, Trevor's diaries are very detailed and very expansive.
Do you think he wanted you to find this?
I do believe he wanted it to be found simply because some of the material that's in them may provide answers for families, for members of the families who lost their children.
Murray, do the diaries name names?
Yes. I mean, that's why the police were so interested in them, because they are very detailed.
Here he's talking about being in early June 1979, which is when the first family murder happened with Alan Barnes. Do you remember?
Yes.
The young fella. Yeah. And he's at a hairdressing salon with Dennis St. Dennis. Would you mind starting to read from this point here, please?
Okay. During this procedure, Bevan Spencer von Einem arrived at the salon to have his hair cut and dyed. He was in a very happy mood. I could hear Bevan and Dennis giggling and laughing, both saying, "Oh, how evil, it's evil." I found them huddled around a group of photographs, Polaroids, laid out on the table. The photographs were of a young, attractive blonde-haired man lying on his side on the front seat of a car with his legs bent towards the steering wheel.
We won't go into the detail there.
Okay.
Because the detail becomes so graphic from this point on that we could never broadcast it. And it would be very, very distressing for the families to hear.
Okay. When a photograph of Alan Barnes appeared in the newspaper, I recognised him as the young man in the photographs that Bevan was showing to a giggling Dennis on that dreadful evening in that salon.
The diary entries don't end there. They go on to detail indescribable sexual depravity and to name the core members of the family who worked alongside von Einem. perpetrators whose identities are still suppressed by the South Australian courts.
Bevan von Einem frequently took drug young men there to have sex with them. He said that would always have the bed made and candles ready. He took the drug boys after Bevan and had finished with them. Gay doctors dispensed Mandrax tablets to Bevan von Einem. All three of them had been actively involved with Bevan by dressing in drag and luring the young hitchhikers into Bevan's car in exchange for Mandrax and Serapax.
It's just absolute total debauchery. But this is a whole coterie of people who were engaged in the most wicked behaviour, drugging, abducting young men, raping them, sexually torturing them, murdering them, and people on the fringes who were coming in for a bit of fun as well. Although there's no mention of Darren Stevenson in the diaries, they directly connect von Einem to Alan Barnes. And they also describe the captivity of Richard Kelvin, again, something that von Einem has always denied.
Richard Kelvin had been held in a unit and that St. Dennis had cut Kelvin's hair during that time. She knew that several people had visited the unit whilst Kelvin was there.
I mean, it's just worse than horrific to think that this boy was held for so long, Murray, that his hair grew and it had to be cut. And during that time that men were visiting that unit, it just makes you cry. It's shocking, it's horrendous. You know, and for these families, and these people need to be named. I don't care if they're dead or alive, do you?
No. I know some of them are dead, but there's many of them are still alive and are out there, and they should be behind bars.
Absolutely should be behind bars. I mean, imagine what the families went through during that time. Sorry. Too much of a mother in me. I can't stand it. It's heartbreaking. David and I do share something in common, yeah. We both had partners who were murdered. In 2006, they find a guy called John Thorne who was up at Kalangadoo, the northern end of the state.
The body of John Thorne was discovered near a rough forestry trail a few kilometres east of Kalangadoo. His red ute was found a considerable distance away.
They found Ron's body in February 1993 in the bush, shot in the back. They found John Thorne's body in 2006 in the bush, shot in the back. What did they all have in common? Standage, Thorne and Ron all knew each other, and they were all involved in the drug trade. Ron, he was a fisherman when I met him, but he also had a drug dealing business on the side, which I didn't know about. I'm just really anti-drugs, I always have been. When I found out, I just said, no, this can't happen. I'm anti-dope and I've got a young daughter and it's not happening. So suddenly you've got this very strong circumstantial link. And the police had Standage in their sights. They just didn't have enough evidence to charge him. And if there's one thing I know about Stephen Standage is he's a gambler and he's always in debt, which is why he killed both men for money. And they allowed Standage to believe, by flying him back and forth to Melbourne's Crown Casino, that he was going to become involved with this big crime boss and he was going to become one of their big wigs. But to do that, They needed to know if there were any skeletons in his closet. So what you have is undercover coppers setting up this psychopath who thinks he's more clever. It was a classic sting. If you were to join our gang, we need to know if you've got skeletons in your closet. And he said, what are you asking me? If there's anything in Tasmania, mate, we can make it go away, but we need to know. And he said, I couldn't tell you anything about that. I'd have to be underwater in a swimming pool. By saying I'd have to be in a swimming pool, Standage meant that he knew that listening devices don't work underwater. Criminals know that. For the police, they knew straight away that he knew a lot more than he was letting on. So it really worked against him. And it was enough to implicate him.
It took 2.5 days, but the jury eventually found Standage guilty of murdering Ronald Jarvis at Nugent in 1992. It was welcome relief to the men's families.
I doubt that he will see the sky as a free man, and I think we should all breathe a sigh of relief for that.
What do you want this one?
Slow roasted lamb, you know, you find love again. I've married a beautiful man. Will, he's beautiful.
Do
I get some of this lamb that's been completely overcooked? But it's a different relationship. Each relationship's, you know, I'm 30 years older now. I'm not saying that I don't have a loving relationship with Will. Of course I do. But it's different. Do I regret anything? No. No. But you know what it did? It honed that sense for me of justice and how important it is that people get justice. Until you get it, until you actually get it, and they close the gates, the prison gates, on the person who's murdered someone you love, then justice doesn't exist.
Unless these people are brought out into the open, this is never going to be solved. And that's not fair on us.
Now I'm intent on helping Robin Barnes and other victims of the family murders find justice by trying to expose the identities of the culprits. Can you write those names down for me?
Yep.
If you can't tell me what they are. Chillingly, Robin's given me 3 names of people she thinks were involved in the family: a magistrate, a businessman, and a transvestite. And we know working with them was a doctor, a key witness known as Mr. B, and several transgender people. And orbiting around this core group were others who'd dip in and out, have their bit of fun, and then fade back into the shadows again.
Deb, was Darren involved? Is that what these Friday night soirees were about?
Who knows, Jess? I mean, David says he wasn't invited to those parties. I'm not sure about that. But was Darren trying to protect him from the predators? Maybe that makes sense. Jess, the irony is that the dogs are barking who these people are. Journos know, the courts know, but we're banned from naming them because of court suppression orders. Those orders were put in place 30 years ago under the somewhat vague umbrella of being in the administration of justice. Well, we're going to try to do something about that. Today I'm going into the court to make application to try to get the suppression orders lifted. There are something like 12 names on the list, and some of these people are dead. It could go one of 2 ways. Either the suppressions will be lifted, which will mean for the first time in 3 decades, we'll be finally able to reveal at least some of the names of people involved with the family. Or the suppressions will remain in place, in which case you have to ask why, after 3 decades, these people are still being protected under South Australian law. Dr. Bob Moles is a legal academic and an expert on wrongful convictions. South Australia is known as the suppression state. Is that deserved?
Yes, it is. We've been far more generous in South Australia in issuing suppression orders than they have been in other states and territories in Australia.
Why is that?
I don't know. Maybe it's a defensive attitude. Maybe they just don't appreciate the need for openness and public confidence in the justice system as they do elsewhere.
Do you think Darren Stevenson's murder is connected in any way with the family murders?
Yes, I would be confident that it is.
In
I
which
think
way?
in a small place like Adelaide, to kill a prominent criminal lawyer and then actually create difficulties with the crime scene in the way in which it was done shows a degree of sophistication.
So who knows how we'll go? But if Darren Stevenson's murder is connected to the family, as Bob Moles reckons, there's one person I really want to put the question to. Bevan Spencer von Einem himself. And to do that, this man is going to help me. I've come to Melbourne to meet with Paul Clark, von Einem's lifelong friend and greatest supporter. Hello, Paul.
Hi, Deb.
What sort of person is he?
He's an interesting person. Very, very comical at times. Got a great sense of humour. Very family-oriented and very caring.
Something happened to Bevan when he was young, didn't it?
Bevan's mother, Thora, told me that it came up something about him being gay, and she said that one of the local delivery men, I can't remember, what did they used to call people in those days?
Pedophiles.
Oh yeah, well that's a good word for it, because that's what happened to Bevan and his brother. That he came in contact with this guy, and he recruited them, I suspect.
What makes you so staunchly loyal to him? Do you really believe that he's innocent of the family? Any involvement in the family
yes,
murders?
I do. Yeah.
On what grounds, Paul?
It's because I've known him for such a long time, and I never thought that Lindy Chamberlain was guilty. I venture to say that when the day of judgment comes, I'll be proven to be right on this score as well with Bevan.
Bevan wants to see me, doesn't he? He wants to meet me in prison. Bevan hasn't seen anyone for 29 years. I think it was 1989. No. You and I have spoken very frankly with each other in phone calls.
Yes.
And I've told you, very clearly that I'm not Bevan's apologist. That's not my job.
No.
How does he cope with prison life? Is he institutionalised now? He's been in a long time.
Oh, I think so. But he's done a lot of good work while he's been in prison, teaching people to paint, but not only that, to read and write.
Anything else you want to tell me about him?
Yes, I wish him well on his journey.
Well, wish me well on mine too, because I've got a long way to go to see him.
You do indeed.
A visit to von Einem in prison would be a major coup, placing me right at the heart of the family. Until then, I've another lead to chase on Darren Stevenson's double life. I'm about to meet with an advocate for victims of child sexual abuse, Jess. Kai Meekins was in no less than 48 different placements as a ward of the state before he was abducted and taken to Queensland by a pedophile called Rick Marshall. Marshall was a well-known kids entertainer. Kai reckons he's got something for me on Darren Stevenson. Kai?
Hello, Debbie.
Hello, Kai. Adelaide, I've spent years and years here, Kai, and uncovering its secrets. For me, it is a really dark city, and a city of secrets. But is that fair of me to feel like that?
Basically, you're being pretty polite by saying that. Very polite, because it is. To me, it's the city of dark chapels.
How many children, Kai, over decades, have been murdered in this city and unaccountable?
Well, basically, I can't give you a full-on fair amount of numbers, but I can say the family murders happened here and everybody's well informed and up to date about all those. When you've got a torso with arms and legs and everything cut off, that is straight back to Jack the Ripper days, mate.
Kai, who are the family?
Let's just say well-anointed, well-appointed. Positions of power,
Do you think that Darren Stevenson had any connection to the so-called family?
Because this is the information I've got, that Darren Stevenson was a photographer, like a filmer, you know, between 2 a.m. in the morning and 4 a.m, very strict hours, and taxi driver that used to pick up all the boys that might want to earn a bit of money here and there, and they'd go to the funny-looking house on Green Hill Road, and that's where the films would be taken.
So you're saying that Darren Stevenson, high-profile criminal lawyer in this small town,
yes,
was making movies about boys who were being picked up by a taxi driver and delivered to his home?
Now, what I can say is that Darren Stevenson was actually done over because he was blackmailing other high-profile celebrities here in South Australia who were caught in a very compromising position on film. Next minute, he's dead.
But David Zack, as you know, went down for the murder of Darren Stevenson. Why would they frame David Zack?
Usually what happens in the underworld side of these things, blackmail and all this sort of stuff, there's a patsy. So Zack, between us, he was a prizzy, little queen. Little queens, they don't pick up guns and chop people up in freezers and shit like that. So someone else did that.
The question is, was Darren Stevenson involved at all in the making of these movies? And what about his mate, Gino Gambardella? Mary Gambardella, Gino's wife, had a lot to say, didn't she, about Gino? All of which was picked up in these newspaper articles. I mean, it's pretty explosive stuff, Jess. The family killings, my husband hired the boys.
I was married to a monster.
Clearly, when you read this stuff, you can see how traumatised she is. Some of these headlines are terrible. Her former husband, Gino, picked up boys at a rate of 1 a week, provided boys to at least 3 prominent Adelaide men, including Darren Stevenson.
And recorded on film sex acts between the teenagers and men.
It's just extraordinary. So these are homemade movies that they're making, pornographic movies. God knows what was going on.
Is it possible that these films were in the hidey hole that was found at Darren's house?
Oh, I have no doubt, Jess, that they were the films in the hidey hole. And that's why people went back. They weren't just going to clean up the blood. They were cleaning up to stop themselves being implicated. Darren Stevenson, criminal lawyer, was involved with prepubescent rape offences, and he must have known what he was doing, and he brought in his sweeper, Gino Gambardella, and she's blown the whistle on him. Jess has also been trawling through the TV archives and has made a really exciting discovery.
So this is an interview with Gino Gambardella in southern Italy in 1989.
Gambardella jumped bail in Adelaide on a minor sex charge 10 years ago and travelled to southern Italy with his 2 children, Louisa and David.
Jess, where is this? Where are they?
Well, I reckon that looks like Molfetta.
Near Gino Gambardella's birthplace.
That's right.
Gambardella is demanding the state government and police act to clear the air over unsubstantiated press reports that have linked him to the gang of homosexual killers, the family.
People say what they want, and it's very easy to say what I want, and people are not there to defend themselves.
We've got to go there, Jess. We've got to find this guy. What are the chances that he's still hanging out in Molfetta? While Jess continues the hunt for Gambardella, South Australia Police has finally come back with David's full criminal history, and it's an eye-opener. He intimated to me that there wasn't much on his record, but clearly looking at this, that's not quite right. The first offence here was 1974.
Okay, so yes, when he was 13, larceny, which is stealing. And also he's on premises for unlawful purpose, which to me means he was on someone's property getting ready to commit a break and enter. When he's nearly 14, there's a string of 6 offences that he's convicted of. Another stealing offence and another stealing offence, breaking and entering a building, which is a felony. He's also stolen or illegally used a motor vehicle, I would say, to get to and from the break and enter premises. He's also got here attempt to commit a felony, building, break and entering again.
After this one, this larceny offence in 1974, he's actually put into the control of the minister until he was 18. That was when he went into Brookway, boys' reformatory. He spent 3 to 6 months in a boys' home for one offence.
Yeah.
OK, is there anything else you want to tell me before we go in there? Because that would seem a bit extreme.
It does, yeah. It suggests that maybe it's got something to do with his home life, his circumstances.
So it's not a good picture here for David, is it?
No, this is a person who's struggling in life at a very young age.
Chris, I've come across a photo of David taken in 1978. It's clearly a mugshot. It's really quite distressing. Have a look. What do you see here?
Yeah, gosh, August 1978, he's been arrested in Adelaide for unlawfully possessing property, so another property offence. He's not well kept. He just looks like he's living very rough on the streets, which is interesting because this is a time when he was in and out of Darrence's life. So perhaps when he was in this sort of condition, Darrence may not have wanted anything to do with him.
He looks haunted to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, yeah.
God, David's police record's as long as your arm, and he didn't volunteer it to me. I had to ask for it. It goes some way to explain why there were raised eyebrows in this town about Darrence, barrister, and his relationship with David, petty thief, who's half his age. And there's one more revelation about David's life of crime, and it comes from his former best mate, Mark Smith. Tell me about when he broke into the office.
Dad got a call one night, in the night, and I don't know, security or police called him, and David was trying to break in. I don't know what for, but Dad got Darrence to come down and take him home, because Dad wasn't going to press charges or anything. I don't even know if he did actually break in, but I just remember Dad, when he came home, he said it was terrible. It was, you know, Darrence chasing David around the car, screaming like a couple of women, you know, why are you doing this and why are you doing that? And that's all I remember of that. So, not a nice experience for my father.
What was he looking for?
I've no idea. No idea.
I find Mark's story about the break-in really shocking. His family went out of their way to take David in, and this is how he repays them? And when it comes to David and Darrence's so-called happy relationship, I'm about to be hit with yet another bombshell. 87-year-old Roger Shepherd is an icon on the Adelaide cabaret scene. He was also a close friend of Darrence's, who revealed something to him shortly before his murder. Tell me about how you knew Darren Stevenson.
Well, I belonged to the Adelaide Theatre Group. That's how I met Darrence, yes.
What was he like, Roger?
Oh, he was a very friendly, fun person, yes, yes.
Was he a decent man, do you think?
Yes, he was, yes.
Did you ever meet his young lover, David Zack?
Only once that I really remember, yes. But I didn't know his name much because I only met him that once and I always forget names.
Darrence told you something, I think, didn't he?
I just said, oh, are you still with that young man, Darrence? And he said, well, I've given him a carpet cleaning business and I hope he makes his own money now. And I said, he's sort of, I'd like to get rid of him. You know, he's a damn nuisance. So I thought this carpet business would keep him out of my sight.
Ooh.
Yeah, he said, I'm sick to death of him.
How long before he was murdered did you have that conversation?
Oh, about a month, perhaps.
Roger's account of his conversation with Darrence is a game changer. David has always maintained their relationship was rock solid. Has it occurred to you that he meant he wanted to get out of the relationship with you?
I didn't think there was anything wrong or sort of we were on the rocks.
This is the first real evidence that Darrence had tired of David, creating what police always believed was the motive for the murder. They say dead men don't tell tales, but Darrence seems to have even more to say, because as my investigation winds up, Chris discovers something utterly remarkable.
Darren's has been in a different position for probably around 2 to 4 hours, and then the body has been moved into the freezer.
I go behind bars to confront Bevan Spencer von Einem. This black psychopath came out. I thought, for one horrible second, I thought, God, he's going to strangle me. Half a world away, the hunt for Gino Gambardella.
Hello.
Hello, Gino.
Yeah.
Did the jury really get it right?
And I shoot from up above and you collapse.
And I put to David the results of our investigation.